Hello and welcome to Bird Workshop, and today we're building a Dominoes game table from black walnut, which was sourced from a Facebook marketplace ad and purchased behind a sketchy Conoco station on the Arkansas-Oklahoma border. With that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, here are all the pieces of black walnut I sourced for the Dominoes board. Bought them from someone who already had them cut to these roughly dimensions, and I'm gonna make a herringbone pattern, and I really need a 3x6 piece. So you can see here this stack is 2 7/8 by 6 plus. That means they're a little bit longer than 6, and I have, I don't know, not quite 20, but this is what I'm interested in. These are a true 3-inch wide and they're 6 long, and I have a bunch of them. So I think these are a stack of 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 some pieces there, maybe 70 some pieces. These are a true 3x6, so I only got 5 out of the whole stack. We have our 3x3 game board. It's a little bigger, it's oversized, so I can cut it down. But I got a center line. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna start doing a pattern here with the 3x6 black walnut. So we're just gonna do a herringbone pattern. And so I do have to spend a lot of time cutting them to make sure they're as close to accurate as possible, because all these little seams, you know, once it gets sanded, see like that little gap right there, I may have to either fill with epoxy or some like little, you know, mixture that I can make, black walnut dust. But anyway, I'm gonna try to get it as precise as I can before the sand. So there'll be, you know, a lot of cuts. Put it this way, I have a whole bucket full of black walnut. I got a jig set up here on the table saw, so I cut each piece the same length. They're all pretty close on the same width. Whoever I bought them from got them from a mill or something. And so they're all pretty close. So I got to kind of use what I got here. But close to 3x6 will make that herringbone pattern. Fill in this board. It's going to take, I don't know, 70, 80 of these. It depends on where it cuts off the edge here. But so there'll be a lot of partial pieces all the way around. But it's a fun project. So I'm just going to put the camera up and let's get cut. Looks nice. So then, following this guy up like that. I like the lighter pieces. Maybe I can stagger those. Okay, here it is after 60 grit sand and 80 grit sand. I decided to stop there. And then I went and wiped it down with mineral spirits, cleaned it off real nice. And then I went and ran packing tape all the way around to create a little lip to kind of seal off the epoxy that I'm ready to pour. And let me show you that. So here I have a 2-part epoxy, an A and a B, and I poured in equal amounts, added some sawdust from the black walnut. So I got that out of my sanding bag to color it black walnut or walnut color. I did a couple of skim coats of epoxy just so that the epoxy filled in all the voids, had time to sink in, and really bond to the table and make it super durable over time. Unfortunately, I had to sand an entire table of epoxy, which is not fun, so I had to get the belt sander out for that. Next, I had a few touch-ups before we add the inlay. This table is for a friend, and her favorite symbol is the sun, so I ordered this sun template off of Etsy, and it worked out pretty well. Had to wait a couple weeks, and as you can tell, I'm not a professional woodworker. I have about a 40-year-old router right there, and it did a great job. The job of this router was simply just to follow the outline of the template. The palm router is what I use to hog out all the black walnut material, which you have to do by freehand, and it's not easy. So I just took my time and made sure I didn't nick the edges, and it looked pretty good in the end. Gonna pour yellow epoxy in the sun. It would be a crime to use stain on beautiful wood such as black walnut, so I use Watco Danish natural oil, and it doesn't disappoint. It looks really deep and has a great shine. At this stage in the project, I went down to my local sawmill and picked up some natural cherry from Arkansas, and here I'm just ripping it down into usable trim pieces, and what a beautiful wood. Should be a nice accent to the black walnut table. At this point, I'm ready for the cherry trim to go on the game board, and I subscribe to the idea of measure once and trim cut 42 times. So that's me running back and forth. In the end, it turned out great. I just simply used my nailer to nail in some real thin 1.5-inch nails and a little bit of glue, and I think it'll last a lifetime. This was one area I struggled with, was the best way to mount this cherry trim onto this table. If you have any ideas, list them in the comments below. Thanks. The final finish is the Minwax polyurethane fast drying semi-gloss in a can. I just did multiple coats, many coats. And I like to use 1,000 grit all the way up to 2,000 grit for the final sand. And it is smooth as butter. With some cherry left over from the trim, I decided to make some domino holders. And so I was able to make 4 boards. They're 12 inches in length. And then I was able to do a 3/8 dado groove that was angled at about 10 degrees, and made 3 rows, and they should look pretty sharp. So I did the same thing. I just used the Watco Danish oil to stain them, and of course I sanded them down, made them all smooth, and then I put some felt bottoms on them, and it's just a nice addition to the game. With $300 in materials and some basic tools and some garage creativity, you can build anything you want. I think this table turned out pretty good, and I know it'll be well used and loved. And that's the whole point of woodworking, is to make something for somebody else. So get out there, get it done.